Hi, for lesson 11, we are going to be talking about gradients. So what we're going to be doing is working with some color swatches to create some gradients, and I'm going to show you how to lay those into your shapes, but you could also use them as strokes, as fills, all of those type of things. We're also going to take a look at how you can make adjustments to these individual gradients and then be able to add to them, subtract from them, change them around a little bit, and all those type of things. So what you need to do is download the lesson 11 document from the module and open it in Illustrator. When you come into the document, you're going to see that it looks something like this. Now, what these are color swatches. So for this assignment, I wanted us all to use very specific colors, and instead of going in and having to type all these numbers in every time, I created some color swatches for us. Now, I'm going to show you how to do it the other way and type in numbers, but at the same time, I wanted this to be a little bit easier so that we could just kind of go through the lesson and practice with these colors. Now, you can do this if you notice under my layers panel, this is a layer. So I have it called layer 4. I'm going to change that to swatches. There we go. Make that a little bit easier. Do the little drop down right here. And you can see I put them all into color groups. So I'm going to unlock this. A lot of times when you're working with a professional designer, what you're going to see is these colors are usually like setting over to the side on this gray so that you have easy access to it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it over here. You'll also see sometimes whenever you get something, if you're printing something or you have a printer doing something for you, these little color swatches will be right up kind of close to the top. That's where they put them outside of the print area, so that they can have access to them as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move mine over here, and we're going to talk about using the eyedropper to just be able to select these colors. Then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to close this one. Now I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this layer head, H-E-A-D. Okay, so on this one, we're going to create a little monster. So I need the monster to be somewhere. So the very first layer that I need to have to create the background, I'm going to call BG, or background. And I'm going to pull this one right down here. I'm going to make sure it's selected. And we're going to start by drawing a gradient in the background. So whenever you're drawing a gradient, there's a couple different ways of doing this. We're going to start off by using it as a fill and then use the gradient tool to make adjustments to it. So we're going to grab the rectangle tool, and we're going to draw a rectangle that fits this entire area. Okay, now once you have it drawn, we're going to use these background colors and we're going to create a gradient. So we're going to come over to this little gradient panel, and when you click it, it's going to look like this. And we're going to create a linear gradient. So that's the very first one. So the first one is linear, the second is radial, so it has that circular to it, and then the third one is a free-form gradient. So the first one's going to give us that line feeling, and when you click on it, it's going to give you black to white. If you do the little drop down that's right here, it's going to give you some presets. And if you remember, if you're in swatches, you can come to the library and be able to do some preset gradients as well. But that's the easy way of doing this. And I want to show you how to create your own, because a lot of times you're going to be using your own more often. So go back to this gradient selection. This is your gradient slider right here in the middle. And you can see our gradient goes from white to black. So our little circle here is white. The one on the other side is left. You also can do a color to its transparency. So that's another option that you can do. We're going to do that one a little bit later in this. We're going to start off by working with color. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this first little circle that's white, and we want to make sure it has that line around it. And I'm going to use the eyedropper right here, and I'm going to select this first box up here under background. So it gives me that light tan on one side. Then I'm going to come over to the black circle in the gradient panel, and I'm going to do the dark brown. And then I want to add one in the middle, and you could add as many as you can fit between here. depending on how smooth you want this color to go, or if you want like even like a rainbow and you want to do 6 different colors on here, you can do that as well. We want one more color, so we're just going to go right here in the middle, and you can see my cursor has a little plus sign next to it, and I can click right there. My eyedropper still selected, so I can pick the middle one, and it's just going to make it flow a little bit better. You can make changes to this by simply pushing and pulling these. So if you want more of the light, more of the dark, or if you want them to fade differently, you can push these as well. You can also grab your gradient tool right here, and you can do it straight on the actual document itself. This kind of comes in handy sometimes when you know that you're really trying to create like a shadow around something or whatever. This will give you that where it's lined up and you can see it and you can move it, where this one is just kind of over here and it's a little bit more free. Okay. So now that we have this selected, I'm going to grab my, or we have this done and we have it the way we want. I'm going to grab my selection tool and just have the box selected. Now, I want it to go from light to dark from top to bottom. So I'm just going to have to turn this entire square. You can do it the old-fashioned way where you're just come over here and you get your cursor to change to the curved arrow and you press and hold shift and you twist, or you can do it right here. So this is where you can change your angles. So it has positives and negatives. So if you want it to go one way or the other. So if I was to hit 90 degrees, you can see it kind of goes diagonal. If I wanted it to go 120 degrees, it goes the opposite way. Okay, so you're going to have to figure out what angle you need this to flip at. I thought it should be 90. There it is. It is 90. I actually want mine at negative 90 because I want light at the top, dark at the bottom. So I went negative 90 degrees and got it to flip. But what I want to do is I want to create the illusion of a wall, so and a floor. So I'm going to take this up and I'm going to pull it up about 3/4 of the way. And there's no exact measurement here. I'm just trying to move it out of the way a little bit. And then I'm going to take this rectangle and I'm going to come over here to my selection tool, but then I'm going to grab the reflect tool, which is right here. I'm going to double click that reflect tool and I'm going to flip this whole thing horizontally and I'm going to make a copy of it. And that's what I want to put on the very bottom to be my floor. And you'll see, oh no, I lied. I didn't want to reflect it. I just wanted to make a copy of it. So I want to duplicate it. So I'm going to press and hold Alt and drag down. Because if I flip it, then I'll have dark against dark and you won't be able to see where the line is. And then I'm just going to resize it and line them up. And there we go. And now that kind of looks like the corner of a wall and the floor right here. And I don't like how bright the floor is, so I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to pull this over a little bit more. I'm going to make my floor a little less shiny. There we go. Okay. So next we're going to start with drawing on the head layer. So I'm going to come back over into my layers. You can see my background layers right there. I'm going to go ahead and lock my background layer so I'm not bumping into things. I'm going to grab my head layer and I'm going to start by drawing an oval for the head. And it automatically fills it with the last gradient I used, which is fine. We can change that. If it's bothering you, you can always come over here and change it to a white. And we're going to turn it. And I want you to kind of play with these. These can be your own individual monster. We're all going to kind of work from the same area, but then you can change it up a little bit if you want. So I'm going to click on his head and I'm going to click on the direct selection tool and click this top anchor, and I'm going to make him have a little bit pointier head at the top, a little more egg-shaped. And when you get it the shape you want it, we're going to click on it again with the selection, and we're going to go ahead and change this gradient again. So for this time, we're going to use this blue and this green, but I also want to turn it into a radial. So I'm going to click on the center box right here, the radial, and you'll see that it has a little circle in the middle and then everything. And I'm going to kind of drag this back over. So we do not need this center color because we only have 2 right here. So we're just going to make sure that's selected and you have the little white circle around it and hit the trash can. It makes it go away. And again, we're going to change these colors by clicking right here and changing it to, and grabbing the eyedropper and changing it to green. And then outside one, eyedropper blue. And now we have this kind of blue-green going on in here. Now, another thing I didn't show you earlier is if you're using this gradient tool, so it has this little line on it, you can click on this little line that's right here and you can move this gradient around. So maybe I don't want the circle to be perfectly centered. I want it to, you know, be slightly up to the left or to the right. I can do that. I can also make my gradient bigger by clicking on these little areas if I want it more of an oval shape, or if I want it to rotate, or if I want to make it bigger. So this one makes it bigger. So sometimes when you're working on something, the gradient that'll be on here will be smaller than what you're working with. And so you'll have to move this entire gradient or size it so that it fits the entire object. I'm going to make my circle back in a little bit. So you can kind of adjust it and get it to where you like it. There we go. Now we're going to create some eyes for him. So we're going to do the same type of thing. Grab your circle tool and we're going to make him have some kind of buggy eyes. I'll make a circle here and I'm going to drag it right about there. But again, we don't want it to be the same color. So I'm going to use these 3 colors to make this circle. So the first one is going to be white. So where it's green, I'm going to click on it, do the eyedropper, change it to white, change the blue to the dark orange, and then right in the middle, I'm going to take that middle orange. And mine right now are very orange. I'm going to make them a little bit whiter. Just kind of keep pushing. Whoops. These glows over a little bit until I get it glowing the way I like. Then to put the one in the back of the head, I'm just going to duplicate this one. So I'm going to use my scale tool. And now I can scale this down. So I'm just going to go down to about 90% because we're not making a huge difference. And I'm going to copy it. Whoops. With it selected. Scale tool. 90%. Copy. There we go. And I'm going to pull it back here. And then I'm going to go into my layer panel and I'm going to put this one behind the head. There we go. So I'll have an eye on this side of his head and an eye on this side of his head. Okay, next we're going to go give him a body, and we want the body to be a small kind of circle. So we're going to grab this and we're going to make a body. And I don't want the body to go right up and next to him because I am going to go ahead and put a neck on him in a little bit. So I'm just going to put it right here. And for this one, I want to use the same gradient that's in this head. So I'm just going to come over to my toolbar, find my eyedropper over here, and click on the head, and then it'll automatically fill into the body. And I have this on head. I need to move this, so I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this one body. And I'm going to move that head circle into my body layer. Now that I'm on the body, I'm going to create wings. So I want you to create kind of an oval shape like this. And this is how you're gonna create something that's transparent. Well, this is one of the ways. So let me show you both ways of doing this. So the first way is, let's say we wanted the wing to be gray to white or gray to transparent. So we'll do gray so you can see it a little bit better. But I'm going to click on my gradient tool over here, or my gradient panel over here. And in this first one, I'm going to grab my eyedropper and I'm going to do gray. And then on the second, I'm going to do the same thing. So on both circles, they're both going to be gray. So of course you can't see a gradient. But when you have this circle or whichever one you have, when you have it selected, you can come down here to your opacity and lower the opacity down. So if I made it go all the way to 0, and I unselect this so you can see it, you can see my background colors coming through it. Or if I move it over this, you can see through it. So that makes it so you can, have a gradient that goes from nothing to a color. And you could adjust, even this one if you didn't want it fully see-through. So like a paper thin wing, something like that. Okay. But I wanted to do from gray to white. So I'm going to change this one right here. Nope. Yeah, I'm going to change this one right here to white. And then, like I said earlier, you can use this tool and we can move this. If I click on this little line, we can move it, and I can move it so that the white is kind of up here or to the end of the wing. I can resize it if I want it. And I'm even going to like swoosh it down just a little bit. Okay, I don't want to enlarge it or move it too much because I do want to have a little gray around the outside so I don't lose the entire wing together. So now that I have it, I'm going to change the transparency mode on this one. So if you come up here to window, you can come all the way down here and hit transparency. And then I'm going to change my transparency. Oops, I didn't select the wing. Sorry. Let me go back and select it. Now that it's selected, not gradient tool, I can come over here and I can change their transparency to multiply. And it's going to make it so that it pulls out all that white, but it kind of leaves the darker gray, and you can kind of see through it. And again, if you don't like the way it looks, you can come here on the gradient tool, select it, gradient tool, and we could move that white however we want. So I can like lighten it up a little bit, move it so it's up a little bit more. There, whoop, I hit the wrong spot. There we go. Okay, so now you have this nice little wing. So we're going to rotate it. We're going to move it down here like he has a little wing. And in my layers, I need to move it behind the body. There we go. And now I want to make another one. So I'm going to press and hold Alt. I'm going to click on it, press and hold Alt. You can rotate it a little bit if you want. And then I'm going to do it the cheating way. I'm going to select both of them, do my reflect tool, flip them vertically and do copy. And then here's 2 more wings for me. And I'm going to take them down just a little bit in size because they are further away from us. There we go, just a smidge. Now, again, it's behind. It should be behind the head, so we're just going to have to move our head. There we go. Got them how I want them. So I'm going to move my head layer all the way to the top now. And now they're behind there. So let's give them a neck. So for the neck, I'm going to use the same color blue, but this time I'm going to use the pencil tool. And I want to see it on the body, but I don't want to see it in the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to grab my pencil tool right here. And I'm just going to kind of draw the shape that I want his neck to be. And then I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and select the head. And there it is. But but I accidentally drew it in my head layer, so I have to move it back down. There we go. There we go. So now he has a head. Or, sorry, now he has a neck. Okay, let's give him a mohawk, just something fun. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, make sure I'm on my head layer, and I'm going to draw from right about here, and I'm going to come down behind his eye, right about the edge of the line, and I'm going to curve the bottom of this, thus so that his mohawk looks like it's going curved along his head. I'm also going to turn off my fill so I can see what I'm doing. Then press and hold Alt, click that last anchor point, and let's give him some little zigzaggy mohawk points. Boop. Okay, when I'm done with that, I'm going to zoom out because I want to add his fill, but I want the gradient to be this purple pink row. So I'm going to come back up to my gradient panel, change the first one to pink, the last one to blue, and the middle one is going to go purple. And again, you can make adjustments to this if you want it to look slightly different. If you want it to be more along the edge. You can also change the type of gradient you want and rotate it. So if you wanted the spikes to be one color, this goes left to right, so I need to do something like this. So play around with the gradient, get it the way you want it to look. I'm going to go back to radial. I kind of liked it. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to zoom back in on it so you can see my next step. So for this step, what we're going to do is we're going to make it look a little more three-dimensional. So I'm just going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to click this anchor point, kind of come up and back at an angle, click the top one, click it again. And so now what I'm doing is just adding some dimension to this without having to do a whole lot. And it's automatically filling with the last gradient we used. So it's putting a pinky purple gradient in there, and that one is off somewhere. So I'm going to go back to that one here. Oh, somehow I bent that one. Okay, so I'll have to fix that with the direct selection tool. So I can grab my direct selection tool and unbend it. Whoops, just bent it worse. Stop it. There we go, fixed. Okay, and then back to my pen tool. And there, now he has this nice little three-dimensional mohawk. Okay, oh, I hit the wrong button. So now we're going to give him some arms and legs. You can do this the same way you, oh, before we give him arms and legs, let's put his mohawk behind his eye. So I'm going to do this one right here. I'm going to move the mohawk and all of its little spikes, and I'm going to take it and move it down below the eye. There we go. So now it kind of goes behind that little googly eye. Now for the arms and legs, you can do either the same way we did the neck, or you can use any of the other drawing tools and kind of come up with them. I'm going to zoom out so I can see where I'm drawing. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do it with, you can use the pencil tool. I'm going to do kind of a free-form arm and have them need to be on my body. And I'm just going to kind of go right here and draw him a little hand. Swoop. And then grab my eyedropper and make it blue like his body. And then I'm going to reflect it, copy it. I can move this one over here and kind of twist it. And I want that one behind. So I'm going to drag it down. some little feet. There we go. And I'm gonna reflect it. And then I also want him to have another little foot coming out from back here that's a little bit smaller, so I'm just gonna make a copy of it, make it a little smaller. And I'm gonna move that one to the back of his body. And again, copy it, pull this one over here. And there we go. So now he has some little legs that he's standing on. So the last thing we need to do is draw his eyeballs. So for this, we're going to use these next other colors down here, but you're going to draw a circle first. So I'm actually, because we're going to have multiple layers on this, I'm going to lock my head and my body, and I'm going to create a new layer, and this is going to be his eyes. And then I'm going to come up here. So the first thing you need to do is draw the iris of his eye, so he has some color to him. And we're going to make this the purple. And we're going to use the pink purple gradient that's right here. So I'm just going to use my eyedropper and pick the hair color. Now I want to play with this a little bit more because I'm going to zoom in. And I want this like pinky spot to kind of look almost like a highlight. So I'll come over to my gradient. It's already on that. Grab my gradient tool. And I'm going to pick up that gradient and kind of move it to where it's down here a little bit. And then I'm going to purposely make it a little bit bigger so it's not quite as hard. And then you can also, like I said, you can push these a little bit more and pull them. There we go. So I want it more like this. Okay, and then we're also going to put a highlight on it. So we're going to copy this circle. So I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to do Control C to control copy, but this time I'm going to do Control F to paste it, and it's going to paste it right in the front. And I'm on this one, I'm going to change it. So I'm going to grab this pink and I'm going to turn it white. If I double click on it, I can do white right here. I'm going to click the last one, white. Nope. And then that center one, I'm just going to hit delete. It's not letting me delete the center one. There we go. That's because I somehow got off the circle. Okay, let me redo that. So I bumped my circle somehow, so I'm just going to recreate this one by Control C and Control F. Now it's back on top. Now I should be able to select the first one, change it to white, select the second one, change it to white, and select the third one and actually delete it. Nope, I deleted the whole layer. I got to hit, whoops. Select it, hit the trash can. There we go. Now, what we want to do is we want this far side to go down to 0. Now you have this nice little loop, and I'm going to kind of flip it and turn it. There we go. So now he has a highlight and his eye looks a little more three-dimensional. Okay, now we're going to do another little circle on top of that one. Okay, so I have it selected right here. Can make it bigger if I need it to be. And this one, we're just going to cheat. We're going to come right up here and do this drop down and do black to white, but then change it to radial. grab the gradient tool and kind of pull it up and over as well, so it gives that kind of, we don't want the hard white on here, so we can even, there we go. There's a reflection in it. And then you can grab your oval tool and just make some white filled little ovals, highlights. Okay, so now you have a little eyeball there for the little guy. And what we're going to do is just select it all. And we'll, of course, Control C, Control V, and you can pull it back here to this back eye, size it down. And there it is. So now if you zoom out, you have a crazy little bug monster guy. And what I want you to do is I want you to just go ahead and play with it a little bit more, kind of decorate them up if you want. The original example I found this from had a little, you know, chest plate pieces on them. So they made these little like curved horseshoe shaped and used a radial gradient on them of this bottom color. And it created this whole effect to it. Also, you can come in here if you want to create something like a shade. So you could do from under his eye, if you wanted the eyes to really look like they're bulging out a little bit more, you can use one of your tools. And you probably could even do this with the circle tool and just make a same circle as his eye and then put it behind it and then move it around. I'm going to do it with the pen tool and just kind of form it behind here. And you could create this little shape and then use the same thing you did with the wings. So I'm just going to grab my eyedropper and do this to it. And then I got to move that layer, which is up here. I have to move it all the way down here behind the eyes, which is actually in the head area. Boop. So now it looks like he has a little bit of a bag under his eye, just to make it look a little more three-dimensional if you want. Okay? And so it's not quite as drastic. Okay, so I want you to play with this, make it your own. If you want to change up some colors, play with some different gradients, feel free to do that. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email and I will answer them for you.